Happy Friday, everybody. It is Friday, May the 3rd. I hope you enjoyed the little video clip that I put in at the beginning of my magnolia tree that is doing just fine. The blooms are starting to open up and the pink color is finally just spread all over that tree, and I think it's going to be a really wonderful year for our blooms this year because there is no frost in our forecast, fortunately. So hooray, hooray for another really good year for the magnolia. So that's kind of exciting, and I'll take a little more footage on Monday so that you can see the difference between now and then. We're supposed to have some warm temperatures this weekend, so I fully expect that it will continue to open up on schedule. So apologies today for the camera angle today is going to have to be what it is, and probably for the foreseeable future for the next few weeks. I mentioned on Monday that I was having some trouble with my hand. It is my left hand, and it's actually my thumb. I've got, I am 99.9% sure, some tendonitis in my thumb right here. All of the symptoms fit, everything fits, and I have made some appointments for next week to go in and have some physio done and check it out. So unfortunately, originally I thought that it was mostly caused by the way that I cut my my batting for the bags, because of how I was holding my hand and the pressure that I was using in that constant repetitive motion in such a way that I knew I probably shouldn't have been doing it. I do have an ergonomic holder for my ruler. It looks like a huge telephone receiver, old-fashioned telephone receiver, you know, when we used to have phones that hung on the walls, or even those square ones that used to sit on our counters with the receiver over the top. Looks like a huge telephone receiver, and it has suction cups on it that suction cup right onto the ruler itself, creating a safe way to hold your hand so that you don't have to worry about cutting your fingers with the rotary tool. Because if you've done any cutting with a rotary tool, you know that that's a definite possibility that you might injure yourself with that tool. So I should be using one anyways, but I left it at the cottage last year, and I've just been, making do without. And I think that is really what aggravated it initially, because I decided to get ahead and I cut. I spent almost a whole day cutting strips of bat so that I could have sort of a stockpile for the bags. And I just think I just overdid it. And that, combined with constant repetitive motion, with stitching and knitting and all of that good stuff, these things happen, right? So knitting doesn't aggravate it. Opening jars, anything like that, anything that when I have to apply pressure in a squeezing motion with the thumb is very painful. So I'm trying to avoid that, and stitching with my left hand aggravates it. So obviously that repetitive motion right there, I can feel it immediately. I can feel just, it's a little bit tight, it's a little bit tender right in there. So long story long, as Michelle Benny likes to say, I will be switching over to one-handed stitching for the foreseeable future. I am going to purchase another ergonomic holder for my ruler for sewing, because as long as I'm careful and I'm, careful with the motions and change up how I'm doing things slowly, take some time for it to heal, and do my exercises that physio tells me to do, then, all things equal, hopefully I should start to see some improvement sooner rather than later. So that's the plan. So I am being very careful with it. So I've set up my camera on the other side. So the camera angle is now coming from this side, and I'm going to just be stitching with my right hand. So I'm going to be significantly slower than I am when I'm stitched two-handed, but you know what? All things considered, I think that I am perfectly okay with that. So we are going to build a fence. And I need to figure out where I'm going to put my pattern here. Everything is on the wrong side. So we're building a fence just like last Friday. Once again, I decided that I really wanted to try and finish up this little house before I put it away. My mania, I decided that this month I would treat myself to work on whatever I wanted that was in my stash. This is still on my floor frame upstairs here in my bedroom, and I'm not sick of it yet. So I think I'm going to put a few more stitches into it. I have been working on secret stitching every free moment that I had this week. So other than that secret stitching, I haven't put a single stitch into anything else. So sitting down here to chat with you today is the first time that I'm stitching on something different. Okay, so how many, what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so we're gonna match fences here. And you know what? I can already, it's such an instinctive motion for me to bring my left hand to the top to pull that needle. So I'm really going to have to monitor myself, make sure that I only use the right hand. And again, I have zero desire to overwork my right hand. And also, I tend to sometimes feel it a little bit in my right elbow if I do too much without a, proper rest. So I'm just going to take the next month slow and steady. But at least my eyes work. My right hand still works just fine. And I can still do the things that I love. This is a Little House Needleworks pattern. Like I mentioned last week, this is the ABC sampler houses. And I will be stitching all of them on one piece of fabric. This is what this particular one's going to look like when it's done. And I am building my second fence. Funny story about this one. I have shared this one before, but in case you haven't heard this story before, when I initially stitched this, I misread the the symbol for the inside of these little things. I thought they were sheep. And so the color that I misread it for made perfect sense because they looked like little sheep. But then when I went to put the tops on the sheep, it was practically the same color. And I thought, oh, that doesn't look right. So I double checked the pattern, and sure enough, they were supposed to be berries, like strawberries, not sheep. So I will forever probably think of them as little sheep and my little shepherdess there. But yeah, so my little shepherdess still doesn't have a face, but she probably won't have a face until the very end. And that's okay. So this is the F, G, and H house. I am stitching them all on one piece of fabric. I will not be cutting them apart. I separate them by 3 squares. So 3 2x2 squares. If you're familiar with using linen, I'm using 2 strands of thread over 2 linen threads. So you would basically have 6? You'll have 6 squares. If you think about it like, I just heard somebody recently describe it as such, like a tic-tac-toe board. And you have all of your 4 corners of the tic-tac-toe board then you're going over like that. So I have 3 squares, 3 tic-tac-toe boards in between each pattern. And then I will probably finish it as a wall hanging of some sort with a dowel. At least that's the plan. I think I might have done one too many stitches here. No, I'm perfect. Just double check. Oh yes, it's very, very much so that I want to bring my left hand out from underneath. Anyway, at least I can still stitch. So John is at the cottage. He just sent me some photographs. He arrived about half an hour ago, and he's safe and sound, made it over. The boat did just fine. He picked it up at the marina where they had kept it for us all winter, and they'd serviced it for us, and they'd put it in the water for him, and it was ready to go. And he made it over safely took his dad over with him. So they are spending the afternoon doing the usual chores that are required in the springtime in order to open up, get the water system ready, get the solar system ready, the electrical panel underneath the cottage that's hooked into the solar panels. All of that needs to be checked. The batteries need to be checked. Things need to be gone over with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that everything survived the winter and the spring. Sometimes, one year in particular, we had a problem with mice in the spring. And boy, if they happen to get in, they can really damage. They can do a lot of damage in a short period of time. So my sister-in-law, so John's sister, is she has a degree in zoology. She has her doctorate in zoology. Anyways, she now, how do I discuss this with, okay, so this is her job. This is what she does. She's a researcher, okay? And she uses mice in her research. So there's no fine way to talk about that. They study mice, and a lot of good work has come out of the science that she has been responsible for. It's a tricky subject, isn't it? Because you're talking about animal welfare and things like that. It's only ever been mice that they've studied, and she's also been in charge of a lot of the local sort of I don't know how to describe what she does. She lives in Italy. She married an Italian man many years ago. He was actually the tour guide for a research party that had gone there from her university in order to study this one particular type of mouse that was found in this very small area of Italy. And he happened to be the guide that was taking them through the mountains, and they fell in love and they got married. Pretty great story, hey? So anyway, she studies mice, and she knows how they think, if that makes sense. And so when we had this trouble with the mice, she happened to be visiting the cottage that summer, and she was able to go around the outside of our cottage looking for any nook or cranny that would be a possible way in for them to find. And she also helped us set up some live traps, the traps where you can trap them and then take them humanely, relocate them to a different location. So she helped us seal up the cottage, and ever since then we haven't had, touch wood, we haven't had any more mice in the cottage. Not something you probably came to Friday Off the Grid to talk about, was it? Talking about mice. Anyway, I can tell you, if you have had to deal with mice, it's not something that's a pleasure trip. However, that's we live in nature. Up on the cottage, we are, we try to live in harmony with the land. So, anyway, he is up there and he's getting everything ready to go. He sent me a picture of my view, my lovely view that I miss so much. Of course, it looks like it always looks in the early spring, where everything is just kind of a bit brown and dead. And I can't wait to get back. So I'm going to insert a picture at the very end of this video. I'm going to insert that picture that he sent me so that you can see what it looks like at this time of year. And it's a little bit desolate. It's very, very, very brown and gray. We have, it's rocks and trees. And then in a few months, I'll show you a picture of the same view, and you'll just be amazed at the transformation. It's a pretty special place. Okay, how many do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, perfect. Good. Okay. No left hand. Don't forget. So I only have a couple of things to talk about today. Comments and questions. I may have missed a few from the video from 3 weeks ago. And if I did, I apologize. If I've missed anything, please feel free to send it to me again on this video, and I'll make sure that I get it into next Friday's recording. So just briefly, and in fact, today's questions and comments will be very brief because I have very little input on any of it. But I do think I will definitely ask here, and let's see if we can get a conversation going. So first of all, there was a question from the Be Easy podcast. And I'm going to have to go and check out your podcast. I did not get a chance to do that yet today. So thank you for leaving me a comment. You actually left me this comment a number of days ago now. So hopefully I haven't left this too long before answering you. The question she asks is, I had a question about my Frank A. Edwards scroll frame. I'm having trouble keeping tension in the center of the fabric. Do you have any tips for how to fix it? I do not have any tips on how to fix it, only because I have never used that sort of a frame. So my question to the rest of our viewers are, if you have yourself a Frank A. Edwards frame, is this a common problem? Is there a way that you have resolved how to fix this particular issue? And if you do, could you please leave me a comment, and then I can chat about it quickly next week. And thank you very much. I'm just double checking here because I think that I'm on the edge of making a boo-boo, but I think I'm okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm gonna finish this one first and then fill that in. Okay, good. Okay. Now, the only other thing to discuss, and this was from two different people. One of them, of course, was Kyle, who I think, Kyle, you must be running out of questions, because you ask 2 questions a week, and you surely must be doing this just to have a bit of a laugh with me, because you must seriously be running out of questions. But it's quite a bit of fun. Both Kyle and Debbie Dowd both asked questions about how to deal with Colorfast items, washing things, ironing things, treatment of threads and such that possibly might run the risk of bleeding. Sorry, distracted here for a minute where I try to find where this is supposed to go. There, right there. Okay, so I'm going to deal with Debbie's question first. She says, I've recently purchased some projects with weeks dye work and gassed threads. The label says Colorfast, so I wasn't too concerned. I like to wash my projects after stitching. Do you wash yours? Just a few days ago, I read it is still recommended to rinse the hand-dyed floss in hot water, even Colorfast, so now I'm worried about it. I'm wondering what you and the others have experienced. I am currently stitching Dreaming of Tulips and using the called for threads. I'm worried about washing it when I'm done. Okay, so you asked for what I do, so that's what I'll tell you first, and then I'll sort of tell you, it's kind of like buyer beware, right? No, I do not wash my threads before using them. I know that there are a few people who do. In particular, I think there's a couple of people in the Facebook group who have mentioned that they wash their threads first and dry them. And, they even, I saw one lady, she had them lovely, like they were just beautifully organized on thread drops after she'd washed them, and they were DMCs, and they just looked perfect. But no, I do not pre-wash my threads, whether or not they are over dyed, variegated, weeks or color and cotton, things like that. I do not wash them. I also generally, I'm going to say 99% of the time, never wash a project when it's done. I do not stitch in hand. I use scroll rods. I use, when I prepare my fabric on the scroll rods, you can see here, this is the back side of the fabric that has been rolled up on the scroll rod. So I'm never touching, I don't keep if I'm holding this is the back side of it. And I don't tend to hold this part of it. And so the actual design picture stays pretty darn clean. I'm not holding the linen in my hand while I'm stitching, though I can tell you that may become something that I try in the future, sewing in hand, if I continue to have problems with my thumb. I don't know, maybe, never know. But no, at this particular point in time, I generally never wash my projects when I'm done. Now that is what I do, because you asked me what I do. Like I said, everybody does things a little bit differently, and some people, I'm sure, wash their projects, and some people wash their threads beforehand. But that leads me sort of into Kyle's question as well, and I'll read his question in a minute. I would be concerned about threads bleeding, especially anything that's red. Anything that's red or a dark, dark, dark navy or something like that, I would be very concerned that it would bleed, even if it said it was Colorfast. I'm not sure I would believe it. But there you go. Okay, so I hope that answered your question. I basically just said what I do. I'm really hoping that there will be lots of people who leave comments and, ideas below about what they do and the different benefits, pros and cons, things like that, about the different ways to handle washing and preparing fabrics and threads beforehand and afterwards, before framing or before fully finishing, that sort of thing. Okay, so lastly, we come to Kyle's question. So his question is, I've recently run into this conundrum. I'm stitching my Fairy Moon by Mirabilia on a hand-dyed fabric. However, the fabric is not Colorfast. And he has capitalized the word not. So my question is, how would you recommend getting wrinkles out of a fabric that's not Colorfast and not have to worry about the possibility of a bleed? Is it even possible to wash a piece after it's been stitched on a hand dyed? So because you've specified not Colorfast, I certainly probably wouldn't wash it, but that would be my instinct. Now, it's really funny that you ask this, because just recently Ginger Gerald had finished his By the Bay piece, the one that had the 3 parts to it, and he used the most beautiful, it was a 46 count linen by XJU Design. I mean, it was stunning. And when he took it off the Q-snap, it was really, really wrinkled. And, you know, he messaged me and he said, you know, what do I do? How do I handle getting these wrinkles out? Because he had tried to iron it already and it didn't come out. Sorry, I'm going to switch to do the last 2 letters that are here. They are in roasted chestnut. So that's the color I'm getting. Did I tell you before the fence was gingerbread? There you go. So I always try to save my scraps, because you never know when you're going to need just a little length of thread, even for just a couple of stitches. So that's why I always like this other handy little hole that they put there at the other end, and that's where I just keep my little excess bit of floss. So anyways, my what I suggested to Gerald was, you know, you should message Jukas. You should message the lady who dyed your fabric and ask her, because if anyone's going to know, it's going to be her. I certainly don't have the experience with that. Now, I know some people recommend using Best Press. I would not use Best Press on anything that was that went through a dye process. It will take it'll take. Okay, so I'm speaking from my experience here. Maybe you've used it and you've had great success with it. And if you have, please leave me a comment. And, you know, I'm always happy to hear other opinions. And I shouldn't say that I'm definitely not saying that my opinion is the be all and end all, but I will never, ever again use Best Press on anything that has been dyed. I took some color out of a beautiful piece of R&R linen. It has a couple of spots on it now. And it just so happens to be on my Modern Folk Embroidery Mystery Stitch Along. You know that nice one with the blue? Yeah, I've never pointed that out, have I? Interesting. The next time I work on it, and if you're now savvy and you're in the know about my little mistake there, the next time I'm stitching on it, I'll point it out. But it took some of the color out of my fabric. And yeah, I wasn't very pleased about that. But anyways, neither here nor there. And you know what? I am going to attach this up here, and I'm going to, or should I? Maybe I should just do a pin stitch. Ah, what the heck? What the heck? It's just a little house. I'm going to sew it in here, and I'm going to carry that thread. I'm going to be a real rebel instead of doing a pin stitch. So don't tell. It's going to be a wall hanging one day anyways. And if you're standing 3 feet away and you can tell that I carried the thread, well, maybe you shouldn't be at my house. Let's see. Where are we going here? One more. There. Now let's see. Is that going to show through too much? I can't see it. Can you? Can you see it? Maybe I'm fooling myself. Well, oh, what the heck. I'm going for it. Okay, so I guess, Kyle, I don't really have any advice for you, do I? Other than don't use Best Press on, especially on a non-Colorfast project. I've heard of people saying you could use a very, very damp, not extremely damp, but just a slightly damp cloth on top of your work and then iron that. But I don't know if that's a good idea or not. I've never had to do it. I've never had to do it on something that's non-Colorfast. I've always been able to either iron the heck out of it myself, or you know what, I'm going to be really honest with you. I give it to my framer and he works his magic and he takes the wrinkles out for me. So I'm really hoping that this will start a little bit of a conversation down in the comments below. So anybody out there, if you've got some advice for Kyle, please leave me a comment below. Oh, look at that. I've been remembering to only stitch with my right hand. And I'm going to, what have I done here? One. Yes. Thought I'd made a big mistake there. Well, big mistake. I've only got 3 stitches in there. I'm okay. There. I'm going to finish this X and then I'm going to say goodbye because my son is going to be getting home soon. Oh, I'll just put one more in. Just one more. My son is coming home soon. It's almost the end of the school day. And because my daughter is away this weekend as well, Sarah's away, it is just a weekend for Nicholas and I this weekend. And we have some really special plans. We are going to go to Five Guys for dinner tonight. Five Guys Burgers and Fries. I think that if you're in the States, I'm pretty sure you know what that is. We have a few of them up here in Canada as well. And, well, it's just a delicious hamburger. And it's my son's favorite place to go as a special treat. So we are going to go and get burgers at Five Guys. And then we're going to bring it home. And we're going to watch a movie together. Just the 2 of us. So we can watch whatever we want to watch. I don't think I'm going to be able to convince him to watch FlossTube. So I think it's going to have to be a movie of some sort. And then when he goes to bed, I plan on watching FlossTube. So that's my Friday night. Done and dusted. Sorted out. And I'm looking forward to it. So I will see you on Monday. I'm not sure how much stitching I will have done. I definitely have some free time this weekend with, trying to take things a bit easy. John's away, Sarah's away. So, things are kind of light. So I will probably have some progress on a few different things to share with you on Monday. If you are participating in Stitch Mania, I hope you're having a blast. I really do. And I'm kind of excited to check out some of the videos that are queued up on my YouTube list for people that are flying through their mania. So happy Friday, happy weekend, happy stitching, and I'll see you soon on Monday. Take care.